Hello, Trekkies and Trekkers. Welcome back to this Star Trek podcast. I'm your host, Dorinda, and I recap every 2 weeks an episode of Star TNG. Today we recap the episode Reunion. Unfortunately, there was no Trek friends available to recap this episode with me. I'm always looking for Trek friends who would like to recap with me the episode or to help me with the bonus episode. So if you are interested, let me know on one of the social medias of the podcast, or of course you can email me at trekkie1982stow@hotmail.com. I would appreciate it if you like this video, comment on the episode, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends and family. And now for the plot of the episode. The Enterprise is met by a Klingon Forja-class battlecruiser, and Ambassador Kayla requests to speak to Captain Picard on a urgent matter. When she beams aboard, she brings a young Klingon boy with her, and based on previous romantic encounters with Kayla, Lieutenant Worf suspects the boy is his son. Kayla warns the senior staff of a power struggle occurring within the Klingon Empire and implores Picard to meet Chancellor K'mpec aboard the battlecruiser. On the Klingon ship, K'mpec reveals that he has been poisoned and is slowly dying, and insists that Picard becomes the arbiter of succession and identify his assassinate. He suspects that it is either Gowron or Duras, the two challenges for the succession, and warns Picard that allowing a Klingon who would use poison to become Chancellor could result in war between the Klingon Empire and the Federation. Killing enormously is seen as dishonorable. Worf finally meets and spends time with the Klingon boy and is troubled by the boy's lack of interest in becoming a warrior. In a private moment with Worf, Kayla confirms that the boy is his son, Alexander, but hid him from Worf in fear that Worf would ask her to take the Klingon oath of marriage. Worf, already burdened by his discommendation, fears for Alexander's future, given the stigma of his family name. The two challengers for leadership of the Council, Gowron and Duras, arrive for the rites of succession. The rites begin with Picard, Duras, Gowron and Kayla confirming that K'mpec has died, but a bomb detonated in the assembly hall, resulting in the death of two unnamed Klingons. Picard decides to draw out the rites using an archaic ceremony to give the Enterprise crew time to complete the forensic analysis on the dead Klingon. Though both reasoned the longer for Gowron and Duras have little choice but to agree to continue the rites. The Enterprise crew discovers that the explosion came from a Romulan bomb worn by one of Dura's guards. Due to Picard's refusal to explain the circumstances of Worf's discommendation, Kayla begins her own investigation and discovers that Dura's father was the true traitor in the Khitomer massacre. Dura's notified of Kayla's access to the records, confronts her and mortally wounded her. Worf and Alexander discover Kayla in time to her to reveal that Duras attached her before she dies. She has Worf promised to look after Alexander. Worf takes a butler from his quarters and transports to Duras' ship, where the challenges Duras in combat under the right of vengeance. Duras initially rejects the challenge, but accepts it when Worf claims Kayla was his mate. Riker, Data, and another Enterprise officer board Duras' ship to stop Worf, but are unable to prevent him from killing Duras in combat. With Duras dead and no other challenges present, Gowan is named Chancellor of the Empire. After the Klingons leave, Picard reprimands Worf for killing Duras. Though Worf defends his actions as valid under Klingons law, Picard reminds him he is first of all a Starfleet officer and placed a formal reprimand on Worf's record. Though Duras' death means that there is no longer any reason to hide the truth of the Khitomer massacre, Worf explains to Picard that the High Council will not admit their actions and vows he has his brother will convince them to speak the truth. Worf and Alexander mourn their loss, and Worf places the boy in the care of his adoptive parents Sergei and Helena Rishenko. So I am going to watch this episode again. I hope you do too. And then I will be back for the recap. So right away we see that Klingon ship is there with Kayla, and Kayla asks to come aboard, and Picard sent Worf to the transport room to welcoming her, and Worf is pretty uncomfortable with it, and he uses the saying of, well, because he has, well, the Klingon world has turned his back to him because of his father, the traitor, etc. He doesn't want to welcoming Kayla on board. So Picard has to remind him that he is firstly a Starfleet officer. And I don't know what you guys see in this beginning of the episode, is that there is already a swear that you can say, okay, something big is going to happen. And bear in mind, this is one of the first background episodes of Worf, what I like. And yeah, it's nice to see that we can see more about Worf and his background, you know. This is also the point that Worf meets for the first time his son. And I think he was pretty, well, I don't want to say shocked, but he was very unease with to see this boy, and well, of course he's going to think back, okay, could this be my son? How old is he? What background does he have, etc., etc. So they have this senior staff meeting now with Killer. And I must say, I always have said that, and this is the first time I actually could say this to the actor itself. I wanted to do that with Leonard Nimoy, I wanted to do that with Nichelle Nichols, but unfortunately I couldn't meet them before that. But I thought it was Destination Star Trek 2018 or 2019, and Susan Plaxton was there, and I went there for a autograph of her, and we talked for a bit, and this is the first time I could tell an actor that that I could tell them. For example, what I said to Susan Plaxton was, I found her one of the most beautiful female Klingons in Star Trek Enterprise, the Star Trek franchise. And at that moment there was not really much about Discovery or whatever, but so I told her that, and she answered with a laugh, and Marina Sirtis and Denise Crosby was sitting next to her, and they hadn't anybody at their table, so they were listening in. And so Susie answered me, well, I didn't have to use the teeth. And what was really funny, and we talked a bit also with Denise Crosby and Marina Sirtis, I really enjoyed that. I really, really enjoyed it. That's why I rather go to the table for an autograph than that I could take a picture with them. And so, that being said, Kayla looks very beautiful in this whole episode and in this scene. And I like her better in like human-y clothes than Klingon clothes, because it brings her softer side over, and that's just exactly the same with, for example, Spock. You know, he is half Vulcan, half human, but if he, for example, he wears the Starfleet uniform or just humanly clothes, it makes him looking softer than when he put on some Vulcan clothes. And maybe this sounds really weird to you guys, but yeah, it's what I also see with Kaylor in this episode. And so they have this meeting, and everyone is very interested and to the how do you say it, in the now, in the present. Only Worf, well, you could see he was really uncomfortable with her being there and his dishonor and etc, etc. And what I noticed, this is one of the episodes that this whole honorary thing and family honor and dishonor and etc from the Klingon perspective is really playing a big role in this. There's one thing I must say about Kayla. I do think she's a very good ambassador for the Klingons as well for the Federation. And there is in one way I always liked her in her, still, I think still a bit more human than Klingon. And as we know, for example, with B'Elanna is more Klingon than human. And I think with Kaylor, it's the other way around. So of course we know the Chancellors, Gowron and Martok, but we haven't have a lot of background about Campek. And in this whole scene, you could see really a dying man, and dying man who asks help. And as a chancellor, you have this power politically, but also as a warrior, I think. But what you see in this scene is mainly that this man is dying. So there is no battle to be fought anymore. And so that he is asking Picard to become his voice after he died. I think I don't know exactly if this is typical Klingon or this is just him preventing civil war in the Klingon world. And I believe it is in this case is that Picard will be deciding who will become the successor of Campek. Okay, Picard and Campek are talking, and Campek said, well, I sent the invitation of the two leaders already, so you have to come along with it. But Campek, in how he is, his demeanor, how he's coming over as a leader, it reminds me of those old Russian leaders that Stalin and Boris Yeltsin, etc. And it is just like how he talks and how he presents himself. So I don't know, and of course Campek has his reasons to let Picard join in all this, and also because he's not only a great diplomat, but it is more like we know Picard can be a great mediator, and that's what Campek also said. You are a good mediator, and I want you to be my voice after my dad. So in one way, I can understand that, and I think because of this of this episode, I think that is how we learn more also about the background of Worf, and there are more episodes about Worf as well in this way. After Picard and Campek talked about how or what, maybe who killed him, poisoning him, we see the next scene that Worf is spending a bit time with Alexander. And Alexander wasn't playing fair, and Worf talked to him about it, that it was not honorable to do such a thing. And he apparently is a bit shocked that Alexander doesn't even want to become warrior. And I think that is the one thing that always has headbutt each other with it. Cause we only see Alexander back as this smooth and sweet, soft little boy, because we do see him later on, of course. And Worf didn't want to be his father in a way because of the dishonor of his family name. And in one way that is very sad because we only know that Alexander Roshanki, of course, has been raised by his grandparents, his, well, in a way adopted grandparents, because they adopt Worf, of course. And we see in episodes that although Worf always wanted to be Klingon, we see still that Worf cares about his adopted parents. And in one way, I do think that Alexander being raised by his grandparents was a bit too much. And I think Worf had to go with the flow with it, because everyone makes mistakes, etc. And I don't know, it's just something that in one way make the whole father-son thing very bad, because we never see how Worf actually will be as a father. But we also have that with Beverly and Wesley. In one way, Beverly has never been a good mother because she always has been working. And I think it must be very frustrated for Wesley not having a mother in the way of how it could be and how it should be. I think that's why he always find things to do or invent or to experiment with, etc., etc. So there's also a confrontation between Kayla and Worf. And Worf wants that Alexander is totally Klingon, and Kayla is telling him he is also my son and I'm half human, so he doesn't have to go all the way with the Klingon ways, etc. What is fair, and I do think because Alexander only have been raised by his mother, it is very, very, I think it doesn't matter then, because the only thing is, and we saw that with B'Elanna as well, B'Elanna is more human than Klingon in that way, but although I just said it's the other way around, what I mean is that although B'Elanna could have a temper, she also could be easy and peaceful. And we see, because in that case Alexander is really been raised as a human, but the underlying emotions of the Klingons, like they can go from laughing to having a fight in literally seconds, and that is with the emotions as well. And you can see that, but you can see that in mixed race people, like not in Earth. But I mean like we see that with Vulcan. We see that with Spock, how Vulcan, half human. We see it with Alexander here, and there are other people who have to learn their ways to deal with it in life. And because Alexander is so young, he doesn't know anything else. But we see later on, we see that he is mad at himself that he didn't go the Klingon way because he couldn't save his father. So I think it is just, this is so actual. You can see it nowadays, and even I can talk about it because I experience in the same way. I don't know how much of the history you do guys know about the Netherlands and Indonesia, what all happened there in the Second World War, etc. So, and that's the most beautiful thing of one of the butcher's men. He said, if for example a white person asked me for tea, my black side is crying because the black side doesn't belong at that point in the white man's world. If the black people are inviting me for tea or a homemade meal or whatever, then my white side is crying because my white part will be not invited to the black side. So we mixed children are in that way bridge builders. And that's how I always say to people, for my white side I am the pagan witch. In my Asian side, I'm the shaman. And although everything is lying close to each other, there is still that dividing of beliefs and how you live. And that's why I always say to people as well, I'm a bridge builder. I'm not going to, I don't care if you're red, white, blue, purple, yellow or brown. It's the person who acts and is. So we see that a lot in Alexander already on a young age. We see that Worf is angry with Kayla because she didn't tell him about Alexander. And we all know that Worf would be demanded that they will take the oath of marriage, as in traditional Klingon ways. But I'm wondering, would it be better if Worf would known, because Kayla does very different job than Worf, and Alexander would be probably only being raised as he is raised now, only by Kayla. So would it matter? And maybe it is because Worf is this traditional and he wants a son and etc. But I think there will be a lot of struggles if Worf had known. So Gowron and Duras are now at the place where Campek died, and there was this big struggle of acknowledging Picard as the arbiter. Worf also know that he in the next few days will be hard on him, and then in this little detail, Picard trusted him and told him that or Duras or Gowron has poisoned Campek. And Worf was a bit of, how much I say, he couldn't believe his ears. So the power struggle between those two will be so hard because, yeah, we're still talking about Klingons, and they do what they do to win or have power in the Empire. Kayla is helping Picard for this whole ceremony and the backgrounds of Duras and Gavron, and they're going to use a paint stick to prove that Campek is dead. And it is nice to see that how Taylor is involved in this, because it's also, like I said before, you see a bit of the background of Klingons in their lifestyles, how they, in their history, but also in how they live and how tradition they are. And in one way, tradition can be very beautiful, but on the other hand, tradition can also be very that old-fashioned that it is weird and even vulnerable and harsh sometimes to put that tradition out, and you a bit of compare it with, for example, with the British tradition. For example, there is this tradition that every royal member has to go on a scale before the Christmas dinner, and even if if you later on not had gain weight, then they would say, I think it was in the way of you didn't like the dinner, or you don't. It's something to do with wealth. So this is also, in a way, a tradition that has been too long in the Empire, and I think it is very, in one way, very barbaric. But of course, Picard has no choice because he is the arbiter, and he is also the one who has to find out who of those two would have murdered Campek. So after this ritual, there is this struggle between Gowron and Duras because they want to finish this ritual of succession already. And Picard is try to get some time that that Campek's body can be examined by Dr. Crusher if he is really been poisoned and that's the death. Then there was an explosion and they survive, but it will be a I don't know if this already sabotaged or this is just an explosion or whatever. So, and in one way it isn't weird that there is an explosion just to sabotage and set things up of who is becoming the next chancellor of the Klingon Empire, who is going to be the leader of the Klingons, Then Kayla and Worf have this conversation about why Kayla didn't tell Worf, and Worf admitted that he would have insist to do the oath of marriage because of tradition. But he tells her too that it is not only tradition and that he truly loved her. And Kayla does the same as, I was so totally different when I left, and you know what I feel for you, etc. So, in one way, the whole Klingon ritual of romance, of mates, of being a romantic couple, it's maybe a bit of barbaric, and maybe you can compare it in our world as, yeah, a kinky side of the whole sex thing. But yeah, it's just nice to know that they, without traditions, they also still love each other. And Alexander is the product of their love. Gowron and Duras are on board the Enterprise, and they are really angry because they wanted to get things done, etc. But Picard is choosing this old ritual to do, old-fashioned ritual. And right away we see that Duras is acting suspicious. And because Picard is investigating also the bomb and the bodies of the dead Klingons, they need time, so that's why Picard, Picard can be very cunning, and we see this, see that in this scene and in the episode. And I think we see that during from off this episode that he's a diplomat, he's a great mediator, but in between this everything, he can be very cunning. And he gets things done in a very, but and I think that is one of the reasons too that they always said Picard always wants to play by the rules. And I believe his experience with the Borg made him less wanted to hold on to the rules. And we especially see that in Star Trek Picard, that he is not willing to play by the rules anymore. And of course he will act on the rules till a certain extent, but if it is totally not what he believes in, he will find another way. And we see that, for example, his involvement with the Romulans, with the attack on Mars, etc., etc. Worf is spending time with Alexander, and then Alexander is interested in the Batlet. And so Worf started to tell the traditions, etc. But Worf also have called Kayla that he can't perform the ritual with her and acknowledge Alexander as his son because he simply doesn't want them to suffer of his dishonor, etc. And we know Worf is very like that's very traditional, but what I really like about Worf, if you see him before, for example, in Star Trek Picard, yes, he is alone, but he is not alone. And he could have family members of different. I thought he even told us that Starfleet is a family for him, to him, or at least the crew of the Enterprise. And it is like, well, I think what we see with Ruffy and him, yes, they have this some kind of tradition where they hold on to because it gives them sanity and guidance. But you also see them as true family members. And they are more than friends. They are more than perhaps teacher and student. And, you know, I don't have anything with the Worf on the Enterprise or in TNG, but I do love the Worf in Star Trek Picard. Gowron is finding Kayla for, okay, speed up the thing with Picard, etc. This has to be done, etc., etc. And I must say, glory to her house. She is badass. And I can see why Worf likes her. So Data and Geordi found out where the bombs is made from, etc. And they discovered that only the Romulans use those. And the whole crew is really, I don't want to say thinking of it, but it is, they're curious on how the hell does something like a Romulan bomb come together into a Klingon ship. What's the purpose of it? Or is somebody just want to blame it on the Romulans? So they're talking about Gowron and Duras. And when they talking about Duras, Picard tells Kemper that they have personal dealings before with him and that he is not trustworthy. He is a traitor. And Kalar asked if Picard could be a bit more specific, and Picard couldn't. And that made her mad, angry. And when she was in her quarters, she directly is going to go investigate on her own. And she is very determined to find out what the hell happened. So Gowron and Duras are on the Enterprise for the last phase of the Zajuk. And in a stupid way, I always think that Duras looks like Worf's half-brother, Kern. And I have no idea why I'm thinking that. It is stupid. But okay. It is still complex how this all together is, and especially with Kalar and the Klingon tradition and the background with Worf, etc. And of course Alexander. And I totally understand Worf, why he want to do the oath with Kalar and acknowledging Alexander as his son. They would so much, and it is beautiful how Kalar is really showing her human side of it, because she's telling him, I don't care what they think, blah, 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 blah. But Worf is looking at the bigger picture. And you must give him credit for that. And it is nice to know that Worf in that time already was this, I think in one way Worf would be a good father, but all the circumstances in his life he would never have that opportunity to show, because I do think because Worf is so honorable, he could be a good provider and father, and especially if he is together with Kaylar would soften his Klingon side, I think. And because Worf has adopted human parents, maybe those two parties could soften him up and becoming a softer and more pacifist Klingon. And what we, of course, eventually see in Star Trek Picard. So, Gowron and Duras are on the Enterprise to talk about further of the explosion, and Mr. Worf had to be there because of he is the head of security. And so both Gowron and Duras didn't want to be in the same room as Worf. And Worf started to share the analysis of the bomb. And you could see that Worf was the effect that Picard wanted to have. They both are not that grounded as they would like to see like them. And Worf has done his homework to, well, let I say, it was a bit of provoking Duras and Gowron. And it's good to see that Worf still has some, he can, of course, with his dishonorable and all, he has this effect on both Klingons. And in one way that's very good, because they can be, how would I say this? It's just and that's, I think that's what Campbell wanted, is that someone is from out of this all, is that it's gonna be a equal way to see find out who murdered him. And like I said, we see a cunning side of Picard. Duras is confronting Kaylar that she is taking a look into the Kittimer massacre, and that his father, and he is concealing all the files to that because of their involvement. And there's only one thing I can say about this scene. Damn, she's cute when she's mad. Don't mess with her. Even she is half a Klingon. So Dr. Crusher found out that the bomb was implanted in Duras's bodyguard. And so that is an honorable way to die, as they say, as in a Klingon. And they also found out that it is very different in what Klingons will do, and especially when Duras, of course, and you see that it was by the father and now the son. They were traitors like that they will do things like this as in their own comfort, and I mean in the way of saving their own skin. So Worf and Alexander are walking to Kalar's quarters, and Worf said, well, I can take you to the holodeck, for example, and explain to you and show you how to fight at the Backlund. When they are in Kalar's quarters, they found her almost dead. So in this moment, you can see Worf's emotions and what he really feels for Kalar. This is also the first time that Alexander is witnessing what that is. Of course, Worf is going to seek revenge to revenge his mate, and I think that's a good right in it, because that's how tradition will be. But again, Duras, never liked Duras' family, etc. And the only way that I did like was the sisters of Duras. But okay. Alexander had to stay with Dr. Crusher. And I noticed that Dr. Crusher have like this little clip in her head that she never used. So I don't know why I see that or noticed that, but okay. Worf is going to his quarters to get his bedlet, and although he is a staff officer, he doesn't want Starfleet to be involved, so that's why he left his communicator, his combat, in his quarter. The only thing again, and I see that chair of him again in the door opening, I always find that chair very interesting, because you can't sit comfortable on that thing, even if for Klingon perspectives. So, what do you guys think about that Klingon chair? Worf killed Duras, and with that the whole thing of who becoming the next chancellor of the Klingon Empire is dealt with. On the other hand, Worf isn't, and Picard giving him a disciplining note on his file that that he killed Duras of Klingon law and traditions. But he also Picard also asked him if it is not time now to speak out about really happened about the Kittimer massacres. But Worf tells Picard one day his brother and him will be speaking out, as do will others. It's still too early to do that. And I think, and I wanted to say that earlier, but we all know that Worf is taking tradition and honor very high. But sometimes I'm asking myself, why did he even get into Starfleet? Couldn't he be better stay in the Klingon Empire and serve the Klingon Empire like that? And it's just weird. And I have said that before, and I'm still looking forward to it. Is that I would love to read or know more about his days on the Starfleet Academy. And how did he cope at the Academy at some young age, and how comes he to be at the point in his life that he is being a lieutenant and security officer on board the Enterprise. The end scene is that Worf talking to Alexander, and he committed to Alexander that he is his father, and in that moment we see that there is a connection between Alexander and him. And once again, Worf do the honorable thing because Alexander isn't raised like a Klingon. He said, you need human parents to raise you, and you deserve a home, a family, and I can't give you that. I think he is just, in one way, I think he could be a good father, but the circumstances can't let him. And in one way I would say, yes, why not? Why don't you let you stay Alexander on the Enterprise? And on the other hand, I completely know what Worf is thinking and feeling. And I think a lot of people would do that. To still not have that the grace of dishonor of his father. But I believe, once again, Worf will fight that decision and speak out about Kittimer. And, well, that is the end of the episode. And I must say, I really, really like this episode. This is one of the first, not that many episodes that it is clear, and it is also very richful in story, but also it only concentrates on one storyline, and I really like that. So tell me what you guys think about this episode. The IMDb rating is an 8.3, what is very high, and I would say I would give it an 8. So it's close, and it's just nice to just have an episode like this. Although of course I do didn't like it that Kayla died, but okay, hey ho, that's life. And now you see how Klingons are. So let me know what you think. Thank you guys for listening, and join me in 2 weeks for another new episode recap. In the next episode we will recap the episode Future Imperfect. Tracking Around is to listen on Spotify, Amazon Music, on the Facebook group and YouTube channel. So for the next few episodes I still need a Chuck friend who can recap with me the episodes, of course, from TNG Season 4, Final Mission, The Loss, and Data's Day. So, I hope you can help me out with it. And, well, I will see you in 2 weeks. Live long and prosper.